The Joe Homan Charity is a UK-registered charity that's been working in South India for over 50 years, where we're doing our best to bring hope and opportunity to some of the poorest children in the world. Joe's charity began in India in 1965 with a single project for destitute boys founded by Joe himself. And the charity continues his work to this day, despite Joe passing in March 2016. Joe gave us a vision that all children have rights and should be free from poverty, and this gave us our mission, now achieved in partnership with local NGOs. So why are we working in India? India is an ancient land of great diversity, with a population today well in excess of 1 billion people. In recent years, India's economy has been growing enormously, and its large skilled workforce makes it a popular choice for international companies seeking to outsource work. At some point, many of us have spoken to people who work in the vast array of call centres in Coimbatore or Mumbai. JHC works exclusively in Tamil Nadu. After more than 70 years of independence, poverty in India has reduced, but it is still a major issue. Rural Indians depend on unpredictable agriculture incomes, while uneducated urban Indians rely on jobs that are, at best, scarce. According to the common definition of poverty, when a person finds it difficult to meet the minimum requirement of acceptable living standards, he or she is considered poor. 30% live below the poverty line. 1 in 3 of the world's poor live in India. Here you can see brothers Siva and Aaron Pandey, who recently joined our projects. Their father died 4 years ago, and their mother supports the family earning from casual work at the mill factory. Millions of people in India are unable to meet these basic standards. For children, this is a lack of access to basic requirements such as food, shelter, sanitation, education and clothing. This is Kali Amal. Her parents died when she was only 4 years old and had never been to school before joining our projects. A typical poor rural family will live in a one-roomed house with no electricity. Luckier families live in a concrete house with a tiled roof, and if there is electricity, it'll be just enough for a single light bulb. There'll be no direct water supply, and drinking water must be fetched from a shared public pump. Generally, local fields provide the sanitation arrangements. In the cities too, there are many slum areas and a severe lack of clean water and basic hygiene. Those migrating from rural areas to seek work in the city can find themselves living in worse conditions than those they left behind. Working with several local NGO partners supporting children in residential and non-residential projects, the charity has reached many thousands of children of all ages, helping them to escape the cycle of poverty, providing access to education and training, together with facilities and resources to help them reach their full potential. We have reached many thousands of children in this way, giving them a vital opportunity to help themselves out of poverty. The children in the residential homes all take an active part in the smooth running of the household, each of them sharing in the chores to be done and eagerly competing for the chance to represent their team in sport and other recreational activities. There is a great deal of emphasis placed on education, and as well as regular attendance at school, time is set aside each day for homework and further study. The youngsters will go to the local government secondary school nearby and are encouraged to remain at school until they complete 10th standard at age 16, the equivalent of GCSE. Thereafter, they will receive vocational guidance. Some will go on for further education, and others will study at government training institutes for good recognised qualifications. Sponsors, who will have watched a child's progress over the years, are more than happy to continue their support through this critical time, and the resulting success is more than the children's families could have possibly imagined. On completion of their training, each and every one is found a work placement suitable to their needs. Much of the funding is provided through individual sponsorship, and the children are extremely proud of the cards, letters, and photographs they receive. Many of them have little or no close family, and it helps to know that someone cares about them. Sponsors receive regular reports on the projects and greetings from the children. Unfortunately, we can't help every poor child in every poor village. However, for those we do reach, we are committed to providing help that will last a lifetime. Changing India. How it's affecting our work. Much has changed in the 50-plus years JHC has been working in India. Most of it highly visible. More planes and better airports, traffic and roads, and probably the most obvious, mobile phones. Industry has developed over the past decade. The growth and dominance of India's information technology industry is a phenomenon recognised the world over. Other success stories hit the news less frequently, but are no less impressive. Pharmaceuticals, automotive products, and a homegrown jet combat aircraft are just a few testifying to greater capacity and excellence. Less technological, but just as dramatic in growth, are construction and agriculture. 10 years ago, combine harvesters were a rarity. Now, they're frequently seen munching through crops in even the smallest fields, or trundling along the road, often at night, singly or in groups. It's rare now to see oxen preparing the land, as they've been usurped by tractors. Recently, to compensate for growing rural unemployment, often exacerbated by increased mechanisation, some village councils administer a government scheme to provide work. Adults are guaranteed 100 days' work yearly at the prevailing coolie rate on a community project. So now a new sight in rural areas is a huge squad of villagers, mostly women in bright saris, trekking to or from work with lunch tins and water, or working hard to deepen a drainage channel, clearing out a silted pond or raising the embankment around their reservoir. Implementation of the scheme is patchy sometimes, so is payment, and overall it's no substitute for the loss of regular work. And the people most likely to lose out are the parents or grandparents of the very children who become vulnerable and need our help. Those then are just some of the more obvious things which constitute the new face of India, often affecting the poor and uneducated in a negative way. Facing change. While India has been changing face, she's also been facing change. This may be less obvious outwardly, but certainly not less significant. These changes are largely hidden below the surface and affect culture and attitude. They don't happen overnight. In fact, it can take years to appreciate their nature and effect. They too have impacted the families and children which JHC and our partner NGOs strive to help. The good news is that many changes impact the role and opportunities for women. In Tamil Nadu, it was not uncommon to find families viewing their daughters as liabilities. Some parents' attitudes were that it wasn't necessary to keep their girls at school. The thought being, she will marry within her extended family and within her caste, so why spend money on further education for another family's benefit? But now those same parents are loudly, publicly and emphatically declaring she will continue in education as far as she is able, get a good job, then think about marriage. Let the groom wait. Early in the new century, government introduced changes in education for the poorer strata of the population. Free education remained, but continued to burden families with costs for writing materials, student notes and uniforms. Child labour laws were tightened, but implementation remained slack. Education for all became the slogan, with age 14 or 8th standard as its target. Schools expanded to take the numbers, but often lacked the commensurate resources or teachers. Special schemes recovered dropout children and returned them to mainstream schooling. More recent changes have replaced didactic teaching and learning by rote en masse with self-paced discovery, mind mapping, and assessments. Girls now have much more to look forward to and aim for, taking advantage of the vastly increased opportunities available to them, competing with the boys at school and beyond. Worldwide, there is an ongoing need for various forms of relief or aid and its delivery, which gives rise to and occupies myriad agencies from the global down to the local field level. India is no exception. Despite its rapid economic technological development, there are thousands of large and small NGOs. While donors and supporters can accept the need for emergency operations triggered by tsunami, earthquake, flood or disease, understandably, as donor fatigue kicks in, they wonder if and when countries will be able to take care of their own problems. And this is affecting the Joe Homan Charity's fundraising support. While India continues to develop at an impressive rate, in the transition and especially in remote rural or hill areas, acute or seasonal poverty continues, sometimes exacerbated by the process. The need to respond to a child in distress remains, and the role of NGOs, such as those partnered by JHC in such relief work, will continue to be relevant and essential. For us and for the beneficiaries, this quantum shift from relief to sustainable development has to be the most impressive and effective change in the past 10 years. Hopefully, JHC donors and supporters will agree. We still need to be there. So why India? JHC has been working here for over 50 years. India may be changing, but the children and communities JHC assists still remain in poverty. Poverty that is not just the absence of income. With help from people like you, children can look forward to a bright future and freedom from poverty. Not only for themselves, but for their own children, and will have a much greater chance to secure a healthy and happy future. On behalf of the Joe Homan Charity, thank you.